Welcome back, boxing fans, to another installment of Corner to Corner Boxing. I'm Louie, and today I'll be taking you through the upcoming Undisputed Super Middleweight Showdown between Saul, Canelo Alvarez, and Jermell Ironman Charlo. Let's jump into it.
I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me.
So this fight is taking place this Saturday, September 30th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Although I suspect most of us will be watching on Showtime pay-per-view. This fight is for Canelo's undisputed super middleweight title. This fight has historic implications because it is the first time that two current active undisputed champions have fought each other. So obviously we have Canelo undisputed at super middleweight, 168 pounds. Charlo is moving up 2 weight classes. He's the current undisputed champion at 154 pounds, which is the junior middleweight division. So like all our breakdowns, we're going to go through the tail of the tape of each fighter. We'll talk about what they do well, their strengths. We'll dive into some of their areas of opportunity or their weaknesses, and then we'll break down each fighter's path to victory. And finally, I'll give you my humble prediction. So starting off with Canelo, tail of the tape, we have him coming in. He's 33 years old, fighting out of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. He's listed at 5 feet 8 inches with a 70.5-inch reach. He's currently listed as the Ring's number 6 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He has a throwback record. I mean, this guy's resume is Hall of Fame worthy. You can put it up against any other fighter's resume in history, and I think it'll stand up quite well. He has over 60 fights, 59 total wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, and 39 wins coming by knockout. We talked about his resume. I mean, he has 22 world title fights, great record in title fights. He has 19 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. He's a 4-division champion, winning titles at 154, 160, 168, and 175. And obviously, he's the current undisputed champion at 168 pounds, which is the super middleweight division. He had a really quick and explosive path to the undisputed title. It was all done within a year, 11 months to be exact. Back in December of 2020, he took on Callum Smith for the WBA and WBC titles. He won that fight by a wide unanimous decision. A couple of months later, in May of 2021, he brutally stopped Billy Joe Saunders by breaking his orbital bone to win Billy Joe's WBO title. And finally, a few months after that, in November of 2021, he stopped Caleb Plant in the 11th round to win Caleb's IBF title. Moving on to Jermell Charlo, also 33 years old. He is fighting out of Dallas, Texas. He's listed at 6 feet with a 73-inch reach. So as you can see, Jermell has both the advantage in height and in reach. Although, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call him the bigger fighter. He might be the taller, longer fighter, but I still would consider Canelo, you know, the bigger fighter. I mean, you know, the dude's built like a tank, and he's, you know, accustomed to the bigger division. He is currently listed as the Ring's number 10 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Great record, 35 wins, only 1 defeat, 19 of those victories coming by way of knockout. He has, early in his career, he did fight a couple of fights at 147, but, you know, for the sake of argument, his career has mainly been campaigned at 154 pounds. I mean, any fight of note has taken place at the junior middleweight limit at 154. He's currently the undisputed junior middleweight champion, and his path to victory was not as clear cut as Canelo's. He had to try a couple of times with some of these opponents. First, we'll start off with Tony Harrison. He won the WBC title from him in December of 2019. This was a rematch. Tony Harrison beat him a couple of months before that, took Jermell's WBC title. So this was a rematch. Jermell came back, knocked out Tony Harrison, and took his WBC title back. Later on in September of 2020, he fought Jason Rosario and knocked him out. That fight was for Rosario's WBO and IBF titles. And then lastly, he beat Brian Castaño in a rematch in May of 2022. Before that, they had fought. That fight ended in a draw. A lot of people thought that Castaño won. However, when they fought in May at the Dignity Health in Carson, California, Jermell Charlo erased all doubts, knocking out Brian Castaño to win the WBO title and to become undisputed. That was his last fight. He's been out for over a year. His last fight was in May of 2022. Like Canelo, he took some time off for a hand injury. So both these guys are coming off fairly recent hand injuries. Just a little extra nugget of information there for this fight. So now we're going to move into what they do well. We'll start off with Canelo. I mean, if you watched any of Canelo's fights, which most people have, I mean, you'll notice that he is a sharpshooter. I mean, this guy is easily one of the best and most explosive counter punchers in the game. He doesn't throw a lot, but when he does throw, these are high percentage shots. For context, he throws an average of 41 punches around. When you rank him against other pound for pound fighters, he's second to last at number 9. He's only below Gervonta Tank Davis, who's notoriously known for throwing a notoriously low amount of punches, also with a high percentage landed. So he's second to last in average punches thrown, but he's second and a really close second at percentage landed at 35.1%. Like I said, he's a close second. Naoya Inoue is at number 1 with a 35.2% landed percentage. So he's really efficient, with his shots. He loves to throw power shots. I mean, he doesn't fuck around. He wants to take the sledgehammer approach and, get his opponents out of there, either with nasty shots to the body or to the head. 56% of his total punches are power punches, and they connect at a impressive 45.4%. So, he's efficient overall, but he's especially efficient when he's throwing power shots. This counterpunching ability is really, he has these opportunities because of his defense. He's known for excellent defense. Most aspects of his defense, I would say all of them are A+ level, right? He has a great, strong high guard that he uses to lull his opponents into a false sense of security, gets them to open up, and then bang, comes over the top or around the side with something nasty. He has great upper body movement, which, I would say he still has it, although I will note that in the last 2 fights, against Triple G and against John Ryder, we really didn't see that, that throwback movement. Maybe that was his style coming into those fights. He was, not worried about what was coming back in those fights. He was fighting an aging Triple G and, a John Ryder that came in as a heavy underdog. So, maybe it could have had something to do with the way that he wanted to end that fight that, really didn't allow us to see that upper body movement that made him great, or that's really, made his career great and fun to watch. He also just like any fighter in Eddie Reynoso's camp, uses feints great. Like he most of his offense is built off of feints. He uses it well. He also uses it as a defensive tactic, and he keeps his opponents really off balance. Like any Mexican fighter or Mexican style fighter, he goes to the body wonderfully. Like he not only sets up, great counter shots to the head, but he sets them up to the body, and when they land, they're really nasty. In the Amir Khan fight, Jim Lampley had a great comment. You sap a man's confidence with body shots like that, and that's exactly what Canelo does. Early on in the fight, he goes to the body. He not only slows you down, like I said, he saps your confidence, or like Jim said, he saps your confidence, but more importantly, he brings your guard down. So you start going for those body shots, or to block those body shots, and guess what? He comes over the top. So he's very deceptive in his offense. He uses, all these things put together to, put himself in a position to land these high percentage shots. Moving on to Charlo, just like anybody in the Derek James camp, he has a great jab. Jermell does a great job at using it to create space, dictate space, timing, and I think that he has one of the best 1-2s in the sport. He kind of lulls you into a sense of safety, I guess, just thinking like, okay, hey, this is all I'm gonna throw. This is, there's nothing coming behind this jab, and then bang, he comes over the top with a nasty right, and he has a lot of success with that. To give you an idea of how much he throws his jab, over half of the punches he throws are jabs. He throws 55% of his total punches are jabs. He's landing these jabs at a respectable 22%. Among top pound for pound fighters, this puts him in the middle of the pack at number 5. He's a great athletic outside boxer, great footwork, fast hands, quick reflexes, boxer puncher type guy, right? So he gets you going with with his boxing early on, and then when he feels the time is ready, he can sit down in these punches and deliver some hard shots. Going back to the Derek James camp stamp, he also possesses a great gas tank. He has wonderful stamina. He's a workhorse, volume puncher, just like his brother, just like Errol Spence. These guys stay busy. They pump the jab. They throw a lot of punches and try to make it difficult for their opponents to set up counter shots, download data, whatever they're trying to do. It's hard to follow a plan when you're getting punched in the face, right? And punched in the face a lot. So just to give you an idea of the comparison between Charlo's output versus Canelo, Charlo's last fight versus Castaño, he averaged 51 punches a round. Canelo's last fight versus John Ryder, where he threw a lot of punches, he averaged 38 punches a round. So even when Canelo is throwing punches, there's still a significant discrepancy between their outputs. Moving on to, I don't like to call them weaknesses. I call them areas of opportunity, or, places where I feel that fighters can improve. Canelo, there's no secret. One of the weaker parts of his game, it has to be his footwork. I don't think it's bad footwork. I think it's more stiff. And partly is because he has taken, like I said earlier, that sledgehammer approach. He comes forward, wants to land those big shots, but he doesn't like, he wants you to stand there, right? Who doesn't when you're throwing power shots, right? But he does tend to have more trouble with mobile fighters. You look at his fight way back with Floyd, and Asani Lara gave him trouble. He stopped Caleb Plant and Billy Joe Saunders, but both those fighters were giving him trouble early on and winning early rounds because of their mobility and their boxing. And then, he lost against Bivol. Bivol wasn't very mobile, but he certainly didn't stand still for Canelo. So fighters with good footwork that bring their bikes to the fight will give Canelo trouble. He also, and I say this almost cautiously, right? Because every fighter will have trouble with this punch, which is the jab. When he fights fighters with a really good elite jab, he doesn't have an answer for it. He tends to get caught. He tends to get thrown off balance with this. I mean, look at his fights against Floyd, against Bivol, and against Triple G. All those fighters had great jabs. And again, these are fighters with, all-time great jabs or the best jab of an era, whatever it is. So it's not necessarily an area of opportunity, but if Charlo can get his jab off and use it intelligently, it's will cause a problem for Canelo. Also, another thing that's plagued Canelo through his career has been his stamina. I mean, he did stop Caleb Plant in the 11th and Sergey Kovalev in the 11th as well. But, the Caleb Plant knockout was in 2021, 2 years ago, and the Kovalev knockout was 4 years ago in 2019. Other than that, all his other knockouts have come within 10 rounds. So, and his punch output definitely decreases as the fight goes on. So, that's a known issue. That's always been, one of the areas of criticism on Canelo has been his stamina. I'm sorry. And then the last thing is, look, his last two fights, like I said earlier, we haven't seen the same Canelo with some of those attributes that made him great and that made him so fun to watch, which is his upper body movement, his slick defense. In the Triple G fight and in the John Ryder fight, those things were just not there. And again, has he lost a step? I mean, he's 33 years old, the same age as Jermell, but he has almost twice as many fights, and he's been, he has a lot of wear on his thread. So it's either has he lost a step, or maybe, like I said earlier, he was not trying to be slick in those fights. Maybe he was trying to, use the high guard more and go for a knockout. So this fight will be the fight that's going to tell us, because, it's a big fight for both of the fighters. And like I said, it's a historic fight. So I think this is the thing this is the type of fight that will bring out the best of Canelo. So this will get our answer to this question, I believe, after Saturday. Moving on to areas of opportunity for Jermell. We talked about his jab. He does a great job of using his jab. However, he doesn't throw a normal jab. He throws almost like a shotgun jab where he steps in and throws his jab. And a lot of times he tends to get caught out on his front foot. He pauses a little bit, or, might be off balance, but it leaves him susceptible to an overhand right, which, just happens to be one of Canelo's best punches. Obviously, that's not good, right? And Brian Castaño really capitalized on that in both fights. He was timing his jab, catching him out on his front foot, and coming over the top of the right hand. So we talked about how Canelo sets up his offense with, deception, with traps, just overall high IQ. Jermell Charlo doesn't have that level of creativity in his offense. He relies a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean mostly, on his athletic advantages over his opponent. So, the way that he wins his exchanges, or that he, outworks you, is, hey, I'm faster than you, I'm quicker than you, my reflexes are better than yours. And so far it's worked. I just don't know that that's going to work against a guy with the IQ and the sharpshooting ability of Canelo Alvarez. So he also tends to overstay his welcome when it comes to exchanges. He tries to get more out of it, which leads to him just being sloppy, right? He gets caught up in the moment, and this is just not something that you want to do against a guy like Canelo Alvarez. It's just not a good idea. And the biggest question, and I think, this fight is really just going to boil down to this, is, look, he's moving up 14 pounds, 2 weight classes. It's a big jump. Is his power going to carry up? Is his punch resistance going to carry up to 168 pounds? This is the first time he's fought above the 154-pound limit. And again, he's not moving up 1. He's moving up 2 weight classes against, a true top 10 pound for pound first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think this, this entire breakdown will really boil down to this question at the end. Path to victory for Canelo. Get to the body early. Do what you do well, right? We know that Charlo is going to be the faster fighter, most likely. He's going to be the more mobile fighter. He's going to be quicker. Get to the body early, slow him down, set the stage, get it to a pace where you can comfortably, land your counter punches. Take advantage. We talked about the overcommitment. Take advantage of that. If you catch him out on his front foot, for example, come over the top with the right. Do that early, set the stage, and it might be an early night. And also capitalize on openings during those exchanges. We talked about Jermell. He during these exchanges, he gets a little bit wild, a little bit sloppy, for the lack of a better word. And I think that's where Canelo can slip something in and hurt him. And then lastly, just, get back to what made him great in the first place, right? Use your feints, upper body movement, slick defense. That stuff is not only fun to watch, but it's just so hard to be in there against. I mean, if you, before this fight, if you want to watch the Danny Jacobs versus Canelo fight, that's just a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Danny Jacobs, great middleweight, long, decorated amateur career, great professional career. He looked lost in there against Canelo because of these things, because of his feints, because of his upper body movement, his creative offense. So I think, in the last 2 fights, 3 fights really, because, he lost to Bivol, obviously. So I think, he just needs to get back to that. Paths to victory for Jermell. Look, it's going to revolve around the jab, but an intelligent use of the jab, using it for the right reasons, not getting caught out on that front foot like we talked about. And I think most importantly, hopefully he can take this away from Bivol's playbook, is using it at the end of exchanges to separate. One of Bivol's most effective combinations when he fought Canelo was a 1-2-1. So he would throw a jab, cross, and then separate with the jab. So he would throw that jab as he was backing out of that exchange. It was just great because, Canelo was trying to time that 1-2 counter at the end of that, but he was getting his head snapped back, and by the time he got in a position to throw a counter, Bivol was out of there. Don't get caught in extended exchanges. Jermell needs to get his work done, 3-4 punch combinations, and then get out of there, preferably with, behind his stick, behind his jab, blocking his escape. Hopefully, that's enough to keep Canelo from setting up a counter punch. And then lastly, look, we talked about it earlier. Jermell might be the taller, longer guy, but he's not going to be the bigger guy. He's not going to be the bigger fighter. He's going to win this fight on the outside. Canelo has one of the best chins probably in history. I mean, this guy, I think he's got him rocked once, when he was like 19 or something like that. But I mean, he's fought, one of the best middleweights ever in Triple G 3 times. He's fought at the light heavyweight limit. He's been undersized at 168. He's fought some heavy hitters. So, let's be real. I just don't think a guy coming up 14 pounds from 154 is going to have that type of pop that's gonna stop Canelo. So that being said, this fight Jermell is going to win this fight on points if he wins. So, stay on the outside, box intelligently, pile up points. My prediction, I'll just be straightforward. I'm picking Canelo either by late stoppage or a wide unanimous decision. I think at the end of the day, it'll be a clear victory for Canelo. Um, like anybody that's seen my predictions, I've been wrong before. So, I wouldn't be surprised if I am again, but just everything in front of me tells me that it's going to be, there'll be some competitive moments 100%. I mean, Jermell is a great fighter, great champion, but I just think that, let's be real. It's 14 pounds that Jermell is coming up. We don't know how well his body's going to assimilate to that, how much his power is going to carry up, if his punch resistance is going to be there. Canelo started his career at 154 pounds. This is his 14th fight above that limit. And including two at 175. So he's very well assimilated to this weight. We know that his power carries up. We know that he has a great chin. His stamina seems to be better at this weight, at the higher weight, probably because he doesn't have to cut as much. And I mean, this is, we just don't know the answer to those questions, or how Charlo's body is going to respond to that weight increase. And then just resume to resume, I mean, Canelo is easily the best opponent of Charlo's career, and definitely has the most power. So, while, we talked about Canelo has been in 22 title fights, several Hall of Famers on his resume. This is the biggest step up, not only in weight, but in competition for Jermell. So, and then lastly, Canelo's chin, right? I mean, this guy literally has a fucking chin made out of granite. He's used to getting hit by bigger guys. He's been in there with, like I said, Triple G, Kovalev, Bivol. I mean, a lot of other guys that have, I would say, more power than Jermell possesses. And he hasn't been hurt or hurt significantly. So that would mean that Charlo's best hope is to outbox him. And look, I said this earlier, I just don't think that Charlo is creative enough to outbox him. He's going to rely a lot on his athletic advantages. But that's going to really depend on if he has enough pop or power to keep Canelo off of him and getting inside and touching the body and eventually touching his chin. And I just don't think he has enough power to do that. I think everything else is there. His speed, his quickness, maybe even his reflexes might be better. But when it just comes down, when you're fighting a guy that takes the sledgehammer approach and you don't have, a hammer of your own to keep him off of you, it's going to be a problem. So that's my prediction. Canelo either by late stoppage or wide unanimous decision. But, just like anything else, we're going to have to tune in and see. If I knew what's going to happen on every fight, I wouldn't watch them. So I'm definitely going to be buying this pay-per-view. I'm really excited. It's an intriguing matchup. And, we'll be back. Carlos and I will be back Sunday after the fight for, our discussion for the fight hangover. So, hope you guys tune in. And next week, we also have a great interview dropping with the director and producer of the Emmy-nominated documentary 18th and Grand, the Olympic Auditorium Story. It's a great interview. There's a lot of great history. I suggest you guys check out the documentary. Definitely check out the interview. But until next time, this has been another installment of Corner to Corner Boxing, where we cover all angles of the sweet science. Thanks for tuning in.